Rise, Optimus Prime.
The Transformers. The movie wasn't just an animated feature. It was a brutal turning point in 80s pop culture that detonates childhood innocence on impact. Production chaos rips through the animation pipeline. Hasbro executives clash with writers over character deaths. Voice actors walk into sessions shocked by what the script demands. Sound designers wrestle with raw explosions that threaten to overwhelm theatrical speakers. Today, we reveal 15 weird facts about the Transformers the movie, secrets buried beneath melted circuits and broken storyboards. Fact number 15. Orson Welles records his final performance through pain and disbelief. Orson Welles doesn't just voice Unicron. He battles his own failing health while doing it. It isn't glamorous. It's raw. It's a legend at the microphone in his last days. Engineers recall how his breathing turns heavy. His energy fluctuates, but when the tape rolls, his voice erupts into something vast and terrifying. Not weakness, but power. What audiences don't know is that Welles allegedly tells his director, "I play a toy who eats other toys." The quote isn't mockery, it's resignation. The man who reinvented cinema now struggles to articulate lines through oxygen-assisted breaths, and yet his delivery is so massive it shatters dailies. Every take sounds like thunder pressed into magnetic tape. His final recorded words become a mechanical apocalypse. His death follows just months later. The film becomes his unexpected monument, a cosmic farewell forged from exhaustion and astonishing craft. Fact number 14. The movie is rewritten to sell toys, and the chaos is wild. It isn't a secret that Hasbro wants new toys, but the scale of interference devastates the script. Executives hand down call sheets that practically dictate who must live and who must die. Not for story, for shelf space. Writers scramble as beloved characters vanish from drafts overnight. Not edits, but erasures. Entire emotional arcs collapse under corporate mandates. Production meetings erupt into tension. Storyboard artists plead to spare certain characters. The answer is no. We need room for the new line. That sentence becomes the film's real villain. According to screenwriter Ron Friedman, the studio tells him to kill Optimus Prime with no hesitation. The fallout is immediate. Children cry in theaters. Parents complain. Hasbro is blindsided by a backlash it never predicts. What audiences don't realize is how close the movie comes to losing even more icons. The film becomes a battlefield between narrative integrity and marketing pressure, and the scars show. Fact number 13. Optimus Prime's death breaks audiences and shatters expectations. Optimus Prime's death isn't written as a shock twist. It's written as a mandate, but what happens next is something the studio never sees coming. Kids melt down in theaters. Some reportedly run from seats in distress. Toy stores receive complaints. Hasbro scrambles. They expect excitement for the new characters, but they instead ignite a cultural revolt. Not disappointment, but betrayal. Inside the production team, morale cracks. Animators question the choice. Directors worry the moment is too heavy for an audience raised on Saturday morning simplicity, but the team commits. They render the death scene with devastating realism, reflections on metal, slow dying breaths, a color shift that drains the life from Optimus Prime's frame. What audiences don't know is that this single scene forces Hasbro to rewrite future projects. They revive the character in the TV show. They tone down other planned deaths. Prime's sacrifice becomes the moment that forever proves animation can hit harder than live action. Fact number 12. The animation crew faces brutal deadlines and technical meltdowns. This movie isn't animated under normal conditions. It's made in a pressure cooker. Storyboards are revised even as scenes ship overseas. Cell shipments arrive incomplete. Color models conflict. Directors receive dailies that don't match previous cuts. It's not disorder. It's a storm. Animators bounce between reworks and emergency fixes as the studio demands a bigger, darker film. Lighting effects push the medium to its brink. Explosions layer across multiple sheets. Energy beams require experimental shading that warps under camera lights. Japanese and American teams trade notes through faxes that arrive hours too late. Continuity slips. Scale fluctuates. The film threatens to collapse under its own ambition. What audiences don't realize is that some sequences are finished only days before mastering. The intensity pays off. The film's color palette becomes iconic. Its spectacle feels volcanic. But behind every frame lies sweat urgency and near disaster, the kind of chaos that defines unforgettable animation. Fact number 11. Leonard Nimoy transforms Galvatron with a performance that surprises everyone. Leonard Nimoy doesn't treat Galvatron as just a villain. He treats him as a fractured warlord forged in fire. It isn't Spock. It's rage sharpened into metal. Cast members recall how Nimoy steps into the booth calm and collected before letting loose devastating vocal attacks that shake the room. Engineers are stunned. His screams spike meters. His whispers freeze the air. What audiences don't know is that Nimoy studies the script like a live-action role. He approaches Galvatron with psychological weight, not cartoony evil. He asks questions about motivation, loyalty, and pain. The result transforms a toy-line antagonist into something mythic. Directors quickly adapt footage to match the ferocity of his delivery. Scenes swell. Battle sequences intensify. Nimoy's work becomes a rare case of an actor elevating an animated villain beyond expectation. Not performance, but transformation. Galvatron becomes unforgettable because Nimoy burns himself into every line he utters. Fact number 10. The sound design team creates a sonic arms race and nearly blows speakers, the soundscape of the Transformers. The movie isn't crafted. It's forged. Explosions erupt across dozens of channels. Mechanical roars grind into synthesizer waves. The mix becomes so loud engineers warn that theatrical speakers may distort. It isn't careful audio design. It's a sonic arms race. Every scene demands bigger blasts, brighter lasers, harsher metallic screams. Then the problem hits. The audio overwhelms the dialogue tracks. Effects swallow character moments whole. Mixers work overnight to carve sonic space using razor-precise filtering. They compare dailies to live rock concert recordings to keep intensity without losing clarity. Midway through this chaos, the studio pushes for even more volume. That's when engineers laugh and say the line fans now quote often, "Go ahead and like and subscribe because this mix nearly killed us." Fact number 9. Hot Rod's role creates massive fan backlash the studio never expects. Hot Rod isn't supposed to replace anyone quietly. He's supposed to lead the franchise. Hasbro plans it. Marketing pushes it. Toy lines prepare for it. But audiences do not embrace him the way executives predict. Instead, they erupt. Not excitement, but resentment. Many children blame Hot Rod for Optimus Prime's death simply because of the sequence structure. Inside production discussions get tense. Writers attempt to clarify the character's arc. Directors try to emphasize innocence, not responsibility. But the damage is done. Letters pour into Hasbro. Some demand Prime's resurrection. Others accuse the company of pushing an unearned hero. In internal meetings, staff openly question whether the choice will fracture long-term brand loyalty. What audiences don't know is that the fallout derails planned storylines. Hot Rod's development in the TV series shifts dramatically. His leadership becomes uncertain. His confidence wavers. The movie intends to crown a new champion, but instead creates one of animation's earliest fan-driven controversies. Fact number 8. The original script contained even darker character deaths. If you think the movie is dark as released, the early drafts are brutal, not dramatic, devastating. Entire teams are wiped out in frames. Characters fans expect to survive are erased before they speak. Writers lean into war film intensity, not children's entertainment. Storyboards depict casualties that resemble battlefield photography, not Saturday morning adventure. Then the pushback begins. Executives fear the film will traumatize younger viewers beyond repair. They order rewrites. Scenes are softened. Some deaths are replaced with off-screen disappearances, but even after revisions, what remains still shocks the crew. Animators pause while reviewing dailies because the emotional weight feels heavier than the film's rating. What audiences don't realize is that one discarded draft allegedly kills almost every Autobot introduced in Season 2. The idea is abandoned when Hasbro senses the potential backlash. The darkness you see in the film isn't an accident. It's the softened version of something far more harrowing. Fact number 7. The animators struggle with mechanical movement on a massive scale. Animating human figures is one thing. Animating dozens of transforming machines is something else entirely. It requires engineering logic and anatomical imagination fused together. The crew faces model sheets more complex than anything in mainstream animation at the time. Limbs rotate, panels fold, internal parts shift. It isn't drawing. It's visual mathematics. Teams in Japan and the US exchange faxes filled with diagrams explaining how transformations should occur. The instructions sometimes contradict earlier sheets. Scale charts fluctuate from sequence to sequence. One animator reportedly redraws an entire battle sequence when he discovers a character's arm doesn't have room to fold the way the storyboards imply. Not a tweak, a total rebuild. What audiences don't know is that many transformations in the film are invented on the spot because the toys themselves physically cannot move the way the script demands. Animators improvise mechanical logic shot by shot, turning impossible machinery into kinetic spectacle. Fact number 6. Seasoned voice. Actors are shocked by the film's intensity and emotional demands. Most cast members walk into early sessions expecting Saturday morning cartoon energy. What they get instead is anguish, rage, and psychological weight. Peter Cullen recalls the heaviness of recording Prime's final breaths. Frank Welker pushes his vocal range into brutal, metallic distortion. Even veteran actors pause between lines, surprised at how far the film pushes emotional realism. Directors encourage raw performances. They ask for internal conflict, pain, sacrifice. Actors who normally breeze through sessions find themselves exhausted after a handful of takes. Not simplicity, but severity. Not routine, but immersion. The recording booth becomes a dramatic stage where every line carries life or death stakes. What audiences don't realize is that the cast collectively elevates the film with theatrical grounding. Their sincerity anchors the chaos. Their emotional commitment transforms a toy-driven mandate into a surprisingly human experience. Behind every battle lies a voice actor reaching deeper than Saturday morning ever required. Fact number 5. The film's color palette is rebuilt multiple times after disastrous tests. The bold neon palette isn't a stylistic whim, it's a survival decision. Early test shots come back dull, muddy, and shockingly lifeless. Explosions disappear into dark backgrounds. Characters blend together. The film looks nothing like the intense cosmic battlefield described in production notes. Not vibrancy, but collapse. Directors panic, so the team rebuilds the palette from scratch. They amplify saturation, push purples and oranges into uncharted territory. Introduce airbrushed lighting effects that barely hold under camera exposure. Scenes are repainted to carve silhouettes from chaos. Dailies begin to glow with radioactive intensity. This is the moment the film finds its signature identity. What audiences don't know is that the new palette is so extreme that some theaters struggle to project it accurately. Colors bloom off the screen. Lines blur, but the visual experiment pays off. The movie becomes a visual punch, a shockwave of color that sets it apart from every animated film of its era. Fact number 4. Judd Nelson's Hot Rod performance is remixed to fix tone clashes. Judd Nelson enters the booth, ready to energize Hot Rod with youthful bravado. But when editors begin assembling scenes, something feels off. His upbeat delivery clashes against the film's brutal tone. Not harmony, but dissonance. Directors love the performance, but the emotional balance collapses. Sound engineers get to work. They trim inflections, adjust pacing, resequence line readings to match the movie's rising darkness. In some cases, they even shift takes from unrelated scenes to heighten urgency. The process is delicate. One wrong cut throws Hot Rod into unintentional comedy. What audiences don't realize is that the final version of Hot Rod is a hybrid between Nelson's natural energy and careful sound editing meant to stabilize the character's arc. He becomes earnest, but shaken, hopeful, but unsure. And that layered vulnerability becomes essential to his eventual transformation, not an accidental nuance, a crafted one. Fact number 3. The score evolves through creative tension and near rejection. Vince DiCola doesn't deliver a typical orchestral score. He delivers an electrified avalanche of synthesizers, breakbeats, and digital aggression. It's radical for 80s animation. Some executives hate it instantly. Not hesitation, outright panic. They fear the music overshadows the visuals. Others call it revolutionary. Post-production becomes a tug-of-war between tradition and innovation. During test screenings, the team experiments with alternate cues, softer mixes, rescored sequences. But every attempt to tame the soundtrack drains the film's energy. The synthesizers give the battles their pulse. They turn Unicron into an electronic storm god. Eventually, producers concede. They let DiCola's avant-garde vision stand. What audiences don't know is that the score nearly gets replaced by a more conventional orchestral approach. But DiCola's sonic rebellion prevails. Today, the soundtrack becomes a cult phenomenon, beloved by fans of synth rock and experimental scoring. Not compromise, but conviction. The music becomes the film's metallic soul. Fact number 2. Several scenes are edited. Out after ratings boards overreact. The film's violence shocks even the MPAA. Early cuts contain blasts that pierce metal frames, bodies collapsing mid-transformation, and slow-motion damage sequences inspired by war documentaries. Ratings board members label it unexpectedly intense for a film tied to children's toys. Not discomfort, alarm. Studios fear an R rating. They order trims immediately. Animators revise impacts. Editors shorten shots by frames. Sound designers soften crunches and metallic screams. Even so, the finished movie remains far more intense than its TV counterpart, and the MPAA still debates pushing it to PG-13. What audiences don't know is that the studio holds emergency meetings over a single scene where a character's faceplate shatters in close-up. The image is cut entirely. The rating stabilizes, but the tension leaves scars across production. The team realizes they've created something darker, more mature, and more emotionally charged than anyone anticipated. Fact number 1. Unicron's design changes repeatedly after technical breakdowns. Unicron isn't easy to draw. He's impossible. Early designs collapse under weight. His transformation sequence breaks camera rigs. His shading melts into muddy blobs during exposure tests. Every attempt to animate him pushes the medium beyond its normal limits, not challenge. Crisis. Model sheets undergo constant revision. Animators add stabilizing lines, then remove them when motion tests smear into chaos. The planet-scale geometry overwhelms background painters. Effects teams beg for simpler lighting. They don't get it. Directors want a creature that feels ancient, cosmic, and terrifying. What audiences don't realize is that Unicron's final look is the product of dozens of failed experiments. His rotating maw is redesigned 3 days before deadline. His energy auras are improvised on the fly. Nothing about him is predictable. Everything is invention under pressure, and that struggle creates one of animation's most awe-inspiring mechanical monsters. Bonus fact: an entire finished scene of Optimus Prime was cut to preserve emotional impact. In the original layout, Optimus Prime appears in one additional posthumous vision sequence. The intent is to reassure younger viewers. But editors notice something unexpected. The added scene weakens the emotional weight of his death, not comfort, dilution. The team makes a bold decision. They cut the footage completely, even though animation is already finished and paid for. What audiences don't know is that the lost scene reportedly features Prime offering guidance from beyond a glowing energy field. The moment tests well, but undermines the film's raw power. Removing it keeps the story sharp, immediate, and honest. It preserves the wound that defines the movie's legacy. The deleted scene is never fully released. Only scattered production notes survive. Yet its absence makes the movie stronger, testament to restraint in a film otherwise overflowing with spectacle. The Transformers. The movie wasn't just a tie-in. It was a creative battle zone where animators, actors, composers, and executives collided in spectacular chaos. Its legacy grows not because of what it sells, but because of what it risks. It dares to devastate. It dares to evolve. It dares to break rules that animated films weren't supposed to break.